Everyone, my name is Morgan Witt, and I'm running for City Council in District 7 because Austin needs a boldly progressive leader who's tuned into the community and offers real solutions for the most urgent and comprehensive issues that we face. It's no secret that Austin continues to be economically segregated, or that we're the least livable city for minimum wage workers. As the West Coast burns and the Gulf Coast is devastated by hurricanes, the doom of climate change is knocking at our front door. We continue to watch as COVID-19 wreaks havoc on our Black and Latinx communities. We're kind of approaching this point of no return in Austin, and if we don't change course now, Austin will continue to grow with many in our community left behind. What we're doing right now obviously is not sustainable. We don't need someone who maintains the status quo or who only reacts to problems as they surface or supports incremental change that yields limited results. To truly eliminate these equities and build an Austin for all, District 7 needs bold leadership who will fight for systemic reform to tackle climate change, address affordability, and achieve true justice and equity for those most disenfranchised. I'm a born and raised Austinite, and I have firsthand knowledge of the struggles facing many Austinites. I also have a proven track record of community advocacy and empowerment. I've worked extensively as a bilingual educator and a program manager with immigrants and refugees, communities of color and low socioeconomic status, and folks with disabilities. I've seen the steep challenges that our most vulnerable communities face in simply making a living. And as a teacher and renter, I've also had the jarring experience of being a public servant and not being able to make rent. But as a member of the tech community, as a member of the service industry, and as an avid live music fan, I've also seen the impact of the city's inadequate response, not just on those communities, but on the individuals and business owners who are involved in them. Through all of these diverse experiences, I've developed a really well-rounded perspective. I've seen how badly we need leaders who are more in touch with and representative of the communities that they serve and are thinking about how the decisions we make today will impact future generations. As councilwoman, I'll bring effective solutions to address the root causes of our issues and work together with all of the residents of my district to make sure that everybody gets to live the Austin experience. So addressing climate change is one example of the city's good intentions but limited impact. As councilwoman, I wouldn't just fight for one-off environmentally friendly projects like bike lanes or parks or green space. Those are nice, but climate change demands much more substantive reform. My vision of a local Green New Deal involves fundamentally reorienting the ways that we develop, grow food, create energy, and move around in our city. Austin's laid out a lot of bold plans, yet we continue to sprawl across the hill country, rely on fossil fuels, and of course our underrepresented communities are suffering the most from it. The climate equity plan in draft right now is almost exclusively focused on electric cars with virtually no mention of land use and nothing about non-car transit. The 2012 Imagine Austin plan not only hasn't been achieved and is about to be updated, but was formulated with a disproportionate lack of representation from communities of color, and perhaps because of that, lacks a lot of infill development on the west side, which would ensure equitable development and mitigate gentrification. And as a renter, I can say firsthand that the Austin Resource Recovery Program has not been adequately enforced. We must achieve equitable systemic reform through various strategies. One is we have to reduce our reliance on cars by aggressively investing in accessible sidewalk and bicycle infrastructure, as well as a comprehensive and affordable public transit system. And we also need to reduce or eliminate parking minimum requirements. Two, we need to pursue infill development, which means overhauling the land development code that's older than I am. And the process must include diverse input and representation from all communities and factor in anti-displacement measures for those most vulnerable to being pushed out. And then the third thing that we can do is increase investments in renewable energy, ensure people have access to healthy food, conserve our hill country green space, and invest in making all buildings more energy efficient. So imagine my surprise as a college-educated tech professional when I found that I qualified for 75% median family income affordable housing. I did all the things that I was supposed to do to realize the American dream, yet here I am in my 30s and I still can't afford to buy a home in my district. And I know many of you are probably facing the same reality and others much worse. This isn't how it's supposed to be, and we have to solve it. Affordability is just another area in which we've seen limited progress from the city, frankly, for decades. We're still operating with a land use and planning system designed to exclude, to segregate, and to discriminate. We need to address two main areas of housing supply in Austin. First, we need to increase missing middle or market rate housing by rewriting the land development code to be more equitable and allow for more diverse housing options to be built in every neighborhood. We can also streamline the permitting and development processes to make them more accessible, affordable, and efficient. Increasing public affordable housing is the second thing that we need to tackle. We have a strategic blueprint that outlines the number of units we need, and this is an example of just another plan that the city hasn't achieved. While by state law, we can't mandate that developers include affordable housing in their plans, we can still make it easier and provide a lot of incentives. But we can't just build more housing. We have to do it right. Otherwise, we'll still be faced with gentrification, inequitable distribution of housing, and exclusionary zoning practices. We need equal representation at the table during decision-making processes. We need anti-displacement policies implemented. We need each neighborhood, especially on the west side, to take their fair share of development. We also have to strengthen renter advocacy programs and invest in permanent supportive housing for those experiencing homelessness. And so, to be brief, no. While the answer may seem counterintuitive, pursuing equitable, inclusive urbanization is actually very closely aligned with achieving climate justice in Austin. At the present moment, we know that there's a fundamental conflict between pursuing urban need for housing and transportation and delivering climate justice in Austin because of the way we develop, which is unsustainable and inequitable. As I've mentioned in previous answers, if we or our leaders care about curbing climate change, then we have to make real systemic change to get us there. Making small tweaks to the systems that got us here in the first place points to a lack of commitment to really moving the needle on addressing climate change. Our lives and the lives of future generations are on the line. We can protect the ecology, air quality, by ensuring that we preserve the hill country as much as possible, by expanding parkland and additional green space, and making sure that that's equitably represented on the east side as well as the west. But we can also talk about making sure that the west side takes its fair share of development. And then we can also talk about making sure that our transportation infrastructure reaches those communities who so often don't get enough of it, but also tend most to rely on it. And we can make sure that we're developing in all areas of our neighborhoods so that our low-income residents who tend to live in high-traffic corridors and face the environmental impacts of that have an equal opportunity to live in an environmentally healthy place. So this systemic change we're talking about actually will help us achieve the climate justice that we're looking for. There's so much we can do even at the local level in transforming systems that are designed to discriminate. Public well-being and safety is just another area where leadership has not been proactive in or committed to addressing the root causes of inequity and injustice in Austin. Pursuing justice means preventing harm wherever possible by decriminalizing all minor offenses with a cite and release program like they did in Hays County. We can establish data-driven policies to mitigate implicit biases. We can change how we enforce regulations like traffic enforcement, for instance, or how we respond to emergencies like mental health calls. We can ensure avenues for justice by creating a robust system of accountability and independent investigation and prosecution when police officers are involved in misconduct. We know that Austin doesn't have a great history with justice around this. Specifically in recent months, calls for justice for Javier Ambler, for Mike Ramos, and even for the protester who died, Garrett Foster. And we can also overhaul the recruitment, hiring, and employee retention policies of APD to make sure that we're recruiting the right people, we're training them in the right way, and we are doing everything we can to make sure that they can do their job well. But more fundamentally, I support action and not just platitudes. Yes, the City Council did approve the APD budget, but they also spent the last 4 to 6 years almost doubling it, even though there was no correlation between that budget and the crime rate. And yes, they have made these intentions and are talking about implementation, but we have to make sure that they are actually implemented and that they're done so effectively and equitably.